Hi, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Teddy Pellegatta. I'm Philip Rosemond. So, Teddy, where are you from? You're from Pennsylvania originally?
Bethlehem,
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And what was it like growing up there? I mean, I know you did photography there.
All right.
Teddy and I have known each other for about 20 years. I introduced by Susie McNally back when he first had brain cancer back in
Oh, four.
2004. Yeah. Down in Key West. But of course, we're in Rappahannock County, Virginia, where I used to live. I'm hoping to live back here again soon. And Teddy just found out that it's come back. And so anyway, so yeah, you're from Bethlehem, from Rust Belt. What
It
was
is, yeah.
what was how big was your family there?
Just sister, mom, and dad.
Sister, mom, and dad, and
Yeah.
he was a restaurateur. Am I right?
Yeah. Place my grandfather opened in 1894.
Wow.
It was originally a way station. Uh, he built the place in 1865, and it was a way station because the railroad hadn't come through Bethlehem yet. So once the railroad came in, the way station was moot. And he built, out of that big building, he built a hotel, which had 9 rooms. And then in 1894, they opened a restaurant. And like that, yeah.
So I know you're kind of a master of Italian food and baking and whatnot because you used to have a bakery here. In fact, you catered. I think your last gig on that was catering my mom's party on top of a mountain back in 2000.
2007.
Yeah, that's right. I think we still
Yeah.
have one of your baking pans.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but so was it Italian food that far back?
No, we were a steakhouse.
Steakhouse. Oh, cool.
A little bit of seafood.
Right.
Uh, but we had it was family owned. We were at one time the oldest continuous operating restaurant in Pennsylvania.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
And when did it close?
Maybe 84.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it was recent, and that's when pretty much the family closed it down. And
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That was it. That was it.
so, what brought you went? You went to D.C. and then you went to Vietnam, or what? What is your story?
I didn't do
Oh,
Vietnam.
you didn't do Vietnam,
I joined the Marine Corps in high school.
right? Thank you for your
Uh,
service.
5 December 1956. And I did 8 years in the Marine Corps, 4 active, 4 inactive.
Right.
Um, no, I was in before Vietnam. Well, we were in Vietnam in '56, but it wasn't publicly known for till the war really caught fire in, I don't know, 60 something, 68.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
when things started getting bad.
yeah. No, I went to. I was in the Marine Detachment, London, England, for 2 years, and
Right.
that was the cryptic top secret installation for all operations, Eastern Atlantic and Mediterranean.
Oh wow. So you
Yeah.
work closely with NATO and all that,
No, NATO's in Belgium.
right? But they didn't have any.
No, we had a small contingent. There was only 40 of us Marines there,
Right.
uh, and it was all top secret security kind of work.
Wow.
Dress blues, 40 loaded 45s.
So when you got out, is that when you went to D.C. area, or?
Mm-mm. Now I came back to Bethlehem and went to work in our family restaurant for a while.
Right.
And working with family and living with family gets a little tight. So I left our family business and went to work for Bethlehem Steel. I worked in the rolling mills and all structural steel.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
remember.
And I was a crane operator for Bethlehem.
Right.
And I was there a little over 5 years, and then I moved to New York City.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's Luke. Yeah.
Hi, come on in. Podcast.
Hey, what's up, Luke, man?
So you were in New York for how long?
A little over 2 years.
Yeah.
I got back into saloon bar business. So I was working the Upper East Side,
Right.
82nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
And I met a guy one night. He bought a round for everybody in the place.
Oh, God.
Guy had a patch on his eye.
Uh-huh.
Big, fiery red beard, stocky dude. He at one time was one of Marciano's sparring partners.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Tough little round dude.
Yeah.
So
Rocky Marciano could take a hit. Imagine this
yeah.
guy delivered it.
Yeah. So I just offhandedly said to him, you got any jobs?
Uh-huh.
And he said, what can you do? And I said, I can run a crane, heavy equipment. He said, that's what I'm not looking for. I said, what are you looking for? So he said, I need a labor foreman, a quartermaster timekeeper.
Sure.
So we had 200 people working on that job. And he said, you get down there, I'll give you a job and a place to stay. So I said, you better be legit because I'm coming.
Okay, now where was this?
I was in Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
And I moved to St. Croix.
And it's to St. Croix.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like
and I got there and he was legit, gave me a job, gave me a place to stay. And the job site was looking due north to St. Thomas, St. John,
right,
Tortola, Yost Van Dyke.
The whole Virgin Island
So every day I would come in, disperse the men to, this guy needs 20 guys to strip forms. Guy on masonry needs N number of people, and so on and so on. Tie and rebar, whatever they needed. And then I really didn't have anything to do until the shift was over. And but every day I'm looking out at this beautiful vista. And it was a guy worked for the Virgin Islands Gas Company. He was a retired UDT man, which became the Frogmen, which are now the SEALs. And I'd say, Jerry, how you doing? He said, I hate my job. And I said, I hate my fucking job too. So he had a 38 seafarer sloop. And I said, Jerry, all you do on Sunday, you leave the yacht club, sail to Buck Island with your ridiculously beautiful wife. And all you do is a crossword puzzle and you come back. So I said, why don't we charter your boat? He said, I hate people. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll take them snorkeling, I'll cook and do all that kind of stuff. And so we did it.
How long did you do that?
A little over a year. And we had Coast Guard regulations. You could carry 6 people if you had no engine, and you had to provide life vests and all that kind of stuff. So we started doing that. It was just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like the life.
It was. Well, I became friends with a lot of people in St. Croix. This one guy was real estate, and he was building these condos. So he had to go to New York City for a meeting. And a buddy of his that he flew with in the RCAF was now flying for TWA. And they were flying LAX. And they had a 5-day layover at JFK. So he called Bob and he said, I'd like to bring the crew down. And Bob says, I'm going to be in New York, but send the crew down anyway. So Bob's wife, Mickey, calls me up and she said, Ted, I need your help. And I said, what's up? She said, Bob's in New York and the whole crew from a guy he flew with, FL, which was for Fun Loving Smith. They came. So she said, come out, take them, sail and introduce them to people. So I went down to her house, and when I walked in, I met this stewardess, and it was love at first sight for both of us. So she flew back to LA, and we said, we got to be together. So she came back down. The harbor master married us, and she went back to LA. And every other weekend or so, I would fly out there, or she would come down. Sometimes I'd get there to be a ticket. TWA was still doing Hawaii.
Right.
There'd be a ticket for me to go there. And we lived like that for over a year or so. Stayed in all the fine hotels that TWA did. And I said, Cheryl, what do you think about moving in together? She said, oh, okay. Both of us had lived in New York. We didn't want to go there. Philly's a house. So she changed from LA, she'd fly New York, Paris. So in DC, she could take the shuttle up to New York. So we did that, and about 5 or 6 months living together, it was like, this ain't working, because of the glory of the days we had flying around and did what we did.
Sounds like it worked better.
Oh yeah, it did.
Cohabitating.
So we got divorced, and I stayed in DC, stayed in the restaurant business.
Right.
And
that's how you met Susie McNally.
Actually, yeah. I stayed with this one restaurant 15 years. We all, same crew for 15 years. And most of us were working splits,
Right.
New York splits. You'd work lunch, you'd be off for a couple hours and come back and work dinner.
Sure.
And so we'd all meet at a restaurant somewhere and just for a couple hours drink more than we should have, and go back to work at night. So McNally was working at a place called I can't remember the name of it, but when that place shut down, turns out we started working in the same restaurant, place called Marigold's.
The DuPont Circle?
No, it was on 18th Street between G and H.
Oh, okay. So downtown.
And she worked at a place called Marty LaFowle's, which was a nasty Irish.
I remember that name.
The place smelled. Oh my God! So, yeah.
Growing up in DC, or some of these old restaurants.
Yeah. So I've stayed at this one restaurant that long. 1730 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
It's a block from the White House.
Right.
And most of our clientele was lobbyists, people in the PR business.
Sure.
So it was on a Friday. We always had a waiting line at the door.
Right.
And they would come in from the G Street side. That's where the line was to come in.
Right.
And the hostess, a woman I was dating, and I was working a section right by that, was I worked 9 deuces on the wall. So I'm hearing this conversation. This guy's starting to rag on the hostess about, where's my table? You sat other people that came in after me. And she said, I can't sit 5 people at a deuce. So as soon as a 5 top table clears,
sure,
it's yours. So she came back, minutes later, I don't know how much, and she said, we're getting a table ready for it. And the guy said, don't tell me what you're going to do, just go do it. It's just a young, full of his own shit lawyer.
Yeah.
And
arrogant, huh?
Yeah, very arrogant. So she took him up to seat him, and the guy pushed her. And I was at the window picking up food. I said, I can't talk to this guy. I grabbed this guy by his tie, punched him over a 5 top table. And the whole place just went dead silent. So it wasn't. I exaggerated. It was about 2 minutes later. The owner was in. This guy named Jim Kimsey. He
Uh-huh.
was one of the founders of AOL,
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yes. Okay,
and
I
he
know who you're
says,
talking about.
"Ted, last day." I said, "I think so, Jim." It became personal.
Yeah.
So on that wall at the bar, there was about 12 seats, and every day for 15 years, all the partners from those big law firms came down. We had phone jacks in case their people had to get a hold of them, and they all went to bat for me. They said, "We saw what happened. Like he swung at you first,"
Yeah.
which was a total fucking lie.
Yeah, I know.
It,
From what you
there
said.
was nowhere near the truth.
Yeah.
So,
But he did push
but the guy got
the server.
fired. He got the company, the outfit he was working for. They fired him.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
only so long you can get away with that kind of stuff.
so I was walking up. I walked up through Georgetown, and I was on the corner just past 30th and M.
Sure.
And two guys I had worked with at the airplane years before. They were still in college at Georgetown. Well, they bought this little bar called Garrett's, and the top side was Jour Nuit, which is a very shishi French
I
restaurant.
remember this place. Yeah.
So I'm walking by, and I hear somebody, "Hey, Ted, looking for a job?" So before I got home, I was a maitre d' at this French restaurant, and working 4 days a week. They paid me $250.
This is what year?
Uh, 1983. And I got a cut from everybody on the floor. And all I did was walk around in a suit,
Right. Yeah. So you got
do
a
some
percentage of tips.
some table side Garadon service,
Right.
just and I stayed with those guys about 3 years. And we used to go over food costs and stuff in the kitchen. I said, you know what? These produce companies are raping your ass, man. Here's what I'm proposing. You buy me a van, I'll start buying for the restaurant. Fish, produce, meat. So I can cut your food costs by 10 to 15%. So they agreed to it, and I started delivering that to restaurant. And you remember the Hamburger Hamlets?
Oh yeah. There's a small
They had
local
opened one in
franchise.
Georgetown,
Right. I
just
remember.
shy of
It's the second one, I
Wisconsin, and
think.
yeah. So that guy, I saw him one day at 7-Eleven. He said, "Do you want to pick up my account and start delivering?" I said, "Yeah." So one restaurant will add to another, and then I had to buy a bigger truck and hire somebody. So I stayed in that business for about 3 years. And one day I couldn't take it anymore. The last year in business, I made $1.3 million, and I had no money.
It's
It's
all
like,
going down the drain for the
well,
business.
it's like I had to buy another truck, had to put a guy on.
Yeah.
Workman's comp goes up. Somebody doesn't pay you. You're only working on a 7 to 10% net.
Right.
So I woke up one morning. I said, "Fuck you, Ted. I quit." So the people I was dealing with on the market up in Jessup, they called me up and said, "You want a job, Ted?" I said, "What do you got?" So we need another salesman. We'll give you a car, a secretary, phone in your car. Da, da, da. And I said, "What's the deal, man?" I said, 3% commission, and we'll start you out, pay you, what do you need a week? I said, about $700. So they gave me that, and then the draw of what I was making made the differential. And I ended up, the last year I was there, I sold $2 million worth of produce, and 3%. I was making 60 grand, which at that
At
time was
that
pretty
time,
decent
that
money.
is.
And then I got burned out on that. I mean, it was too easy, and I got too lazy. And we had I mean, I had the Naval Academy, the Smithsonian's. I
Oh.
had some fucking huge accounts, man. And the two partners, they were cokers.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a second delivery service. Let's say any of their trucks got to a stop, they were short a case or something. So they would call Jessup, and we had a couple second delivery trucks which would make that difference.
Right, that was their job.
And they weren't writing the shit down.
Oh God.
So I lost the Naval Academy, I lost the Air and Space Museum, and I had the TGI Friday chain.
Wow,
And
that's a big change.
so I told him to stick it. So I quit. I quit there,
Right.
and I got home that night. And I always had those conversations when I quit a place or something, and it was like, "Nice going. Oh, what are we doing for money?" You know.
Right.
So Michael Brown, a guy was president of Frozen Food Institute. He was a regular, and he calls me up and he says, "Hey Guido, what are you doing?" I said, "Just got out of the produce business today." He said, "Great." And I said, "No, not so good." He said, "My new wife, Sarah, is here from Provence. Come on over and meet her, and I want to make a pitch to you." So I went over, and his father at one time was the ambassador to Morocco. And the guy, he grew up with a guy named Rashid, opened the Moroccan pavilion at the Epcot Center. So he said, we're gonna make the pitch for Moroccan wine because everything in those pavilions had to be exactly like it is in their country.
Oh,
So
I see.
I said, "Mike, I can't afford to fly to fucking Florida." He said, "No, it's on me. Uh, we're moving back to Provence. So I need a guy here to keep Disney satisfied." Well, we got the account. But when we were down there, sitting at this beautiful spread, and it was sitting on the floor, and they would serve stuff, and the plates were small, and everything I put on that little plate I eat. And I was noticing nobody was doing that. So after about the fourth course, I said, "Rashid, I don't mean to be ignorant of your customs, but how many more fucking courses we got coming?" He said, "Reach down and count the tablecloths, because after each, they would strip it out." Yeah. So then came the tasting, and the food and beverage director for Disney was there for that. And I got Rashid sitting here, the director of food and beverage for Disney. And Reed Rapport looks at me. He says, "Ted, you haven't tasted any of the wine." I said, "Reed, I'm an alcoholic." I said, "This will tell me about all I need to know about it." And he was aghast. He said, "What the fuck are you doing in this business?" I said, "Well, anyway, it was a shoe in. We got the account." So before Michael and Sarah went back to Provence, I got a customs broker, Fritz and Company International. So they would meet the ship in Baltimore through the customs. I had a warehouse in D.C. where we could hold any reserve we needed for Disney. Got a warehouse man. Got the central carriers out of Jersey to do southbound pickups going to Florida. And I'm sitting in my apartment thinking, all this shit I can do by phone and fax. So that's when I moved here. I came down here. And about 4 months after I came down here, we lost the account because Rashid was paying us as a middleman, but we had done all the work at the BATF, getting the labeling, went through all that. So he could ship out of Morocco directly to Port Everglades. he didn't have to go there and then go there and go there.
Just straight down
So
to
he lost
Orlando.
the account. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, I can't go back to Arlington. I can't do it. So I got a job washing dishes at 4 and 20 for $5 an hour.
Wow, that was when
1990.
that was right after Heidi and Vinny got the restaurant
Yeah.
from Peggy, right?
So knowing I could eat, even at $5 an hour, I could eat. So they were open for lunch then and dinner. So we'd go, had to be in restaurant in the house by 7:30 to get ready for lunch. And I would make my own breakfast. After lunch, we got lunch. And then Heidi would say, "You want to take a special home?" So I was eating 3 good meals a day, working at $5 an hour.
Where did you live at that time?
I was living in Little Washington.
Back when you could.
It was New Bill Miller's brother's place, Dave's.
Okay.
The last house out, if you drove from the end straight to go out to 211, the last house out on the right. It's a little yellow house.
Oh yeah, I know. It's still
kind of nondescript.
Yeah.
So I was at 4 and 20 for about a year, and I asked Vinny for a raise. Give me a half a buck, something. He said, "Can't do it right now." So I left there. I was driving home. I stopped at the Blue Rock to see Barry Leonardson. He used to be the head waiter at the inn, and I knew him he worked for Georgetown Leather years back. And I walked in, he said, "You here for the job?" I didn't know there was a job open. I said, "Yeah, Barry." I didn't even know there was a job open. I said, "What do you got?" He said, "We need a pantry man and a cashier. What's the deal? We'll give you $10 an hour." So I already doubled my income. And as it turned out, the Campagna brothers owned that at the time, 2 brothers from France. And they were doing maybe 30 weddings a year. So working a wedding, we all got the same cut. So all of a sudden, we're doing a wedding for 70 grand. So 20% hooker on that. That's $1,140. So all of a sudden, I'm making $300 a week. I was like, "Whoa, this is good." So I did that as long as I could. Restaurants burn me out fast.
Well, and it's a lot of work.
I mean, but it's rewarding, especially if I wasn't cooking then, but if you were, that 200 people left your restaurant that night happy. And there was certain gratification in that. So after I left there, I was kind of making a living with my photography and T-shirts and that kind of stuff. And then eventually, the Blue Rock was sold.
Right.
And new people coming in, they needed help, so I went back up there. I was a line cook up there, and that didn't last long. I had a very arrogant French chef. He one day started cursing me. I said, "You don't talk to me like that." And he looked at me. He said, "Don't look at me like that." I said, "I'm come for you, man." So I walked out of that job, and then I picked up anything I could. I worked for landscapers, and then again I went back to the restaurant business, and I was working at back up at the Blue Rock again under another owner.
I think they've had about 7 or 8 owners.
Been a while, yeah, been a gang, and then I just kind of faded away from that. Yeah. I started selling T-shirts and calendars, anything I could do to make a buck.
You were starting to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I met
so that's pretty much the way I continued.
Yeah. So when you originally got cancer, how did that all come about? How did you find out?
I sat down at my, oh, I was sitting up at Mountainside, and this woman came over to me. She said,
Mountainside.
"The market."
Oh, the old
Yeah,
market that used to be up
yeah.
there.
And because I was selling a lot of shit out of there. And this woman came over to me. She said, "Are you Ted Pellegatta?" This woman's in hunt clothes and all that kind of stuff. I said, "Who's asking?" She said, "I'm Ann." I said, "Yeah, what do you got?" She said, "We're looking for somebody to take care of our animals." I said, "What do you got?" They had about 10 or 12 horses, 4 of which were field hunters that they fox hunted. And they knew I had done that. And I had a particularly good reputation with horses. I don't know. I still don't know what it is, but horses took to me like dogs. They loved me, man. It was weird. So I said, "Where are you?" So I went over to look at the farm. I said, "Oh, what do you want?" She said, "I have an office in Paris, and I'm gone a lot. My boyfriend's a tennis pro, and da da da. And you can live here rent free." I said, "Rent free? You're going to pay me?" And she looked at me. I said, "I don't want the job if you ain't paying me." And she said, "Oh, maybe I
That's
should
okay.
talk to my boyfriend about that." I went back to see her, and she said, "I'll show you how we do things here," because I almost agreed to take the job.
Well,
So
did she offer to pay you?
no, it was like, "You can have any of the vehicles, da da da, uh,
Right. So you
food's on us," kind of thing.
right.
So she gets a couple lead lines, and she goes out and starts chasing these horses. I said, "Ann, why don't you go in the house and let me handle this?" So she said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, just watch what I'm going to do." So I went out and sat in the middle of the field, just sat there. And pretty soon there were horses. And of course, the head dude comes over, and he's got to sniff me. And so I let him do that. I stood up, walked toward the barn. He followed me, and the rest of them came
Follow
behind
him.
me.
Yeah. There you go.
She'd be out there chasing these.
Yeah.
I
She's just
said,
scaring
"That's
him off.
stupid."
Yeah.
So I said, "All right, I'll take the job." I was there 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And you were still doing your other stuff, like
yeah,
the
yeah.
books and that sort of thing. How long did that go? What through what year do you think?
Probably 94 to 2004, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So up to the time I met you.
yeah. When I first met her, I said, "Ann, if I take the job, I'll tell you straight up, I don't like your fucking boyfriend." He said, and I said, "I don't like him at all." She said, "Oh, he'll grow on you." But he never did. That turned out to be the catalyst.
That
One
finally.
day he said something to me. I said, "Let me tell you, Ma, I'm going to walk out of here, and if I see you somewhere, you better protect yourself, because I'm going to kick your fucking ass." "Oh, you threat?" I said, "Doesn't that sound like a threat to you?" So I left there, and I moved to another part of Castleton. The guy Casey Eitner? He writes a lot in the paper. He goes under the name of Kashmir Eitner.
Oh yeah, I think I saw him on Rat
Arrogant
Nets
bully
and
back,
yeah.
big dude. So I was there, and they didn't tell me moving in there. Part of my deal was I had to cut the grass and do all that.
I didn't tell you that in advance.
So I had a really bad ankle. I could hardly walk an incline. So I got in a pissing match with them about that. And I said, "That's not what you talked about for me coming here." So I came home one night. They had shut my water off. So I left there. and I moved to Cheryl Cruz's basement. And that's when I started writing poetry.
Let's see if that's showing up there. A little close, but yeah. So, and Teddy, when did you first start? I know you were doing your photography like in Virginia's Blue Ridge. I feel like showing stuff off here and getting in your face. Sorry, but when did you start? I mean, you were taking pictures and selling the photograph books, and then you started with the poetry. Around what year was that? I think it was after I met you.
Oh yeah, that's only 2016.
Yeah, so it's been recent.
Yeah.
So can you go back for a second and talk a little bit about the cancer that you fought and how that came
Oh,
about?
I was on that farm, as I told you, and I sat down one day to write a check, and I'm looking at my hand and it won't motor.
Uh-huh. It just wouldn't work.
Wouldn't do. So I went to the VA up in Martinsburg, and I think that was in September. And they didn't have an opening in neurology till like December. So Linda,
Hmm.
the next day, took me down to UVA, and I was totally paralyzed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you couldn't walk or anything.
So they put me on a gurney, and happened the head of the neurology department, Dr. Laws, was in the ER for whatever reason. And he came over and he said, "What are you feeling?" I said, "Doc, I don't know if I'm stroking, what the fuck is going on." So they had a portable CAT scan machine. Came up, he said, "Prep this man for surgery." I wasn't in the hospital an hour. And he took it out, which was benign. It was a benign tumor.
But it was getting in the way of things.
Oh yeah,
Obviously.
it shut my nerves down.
Right.
Shut my whole nervous system down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital 10 days, and I come out and I had no affectation at all, nothing wrong, no speech problem.
And that was that.
Yeah.
And so you were fine, and after that, completely.
Huh?
Because when I first met you, it was down, and I was working for
That was in 04.
Yeah, I was working for Susie McNally, and I met you in Key West, and then we got together up here a few times.
Yeah.
And then I know you've lived in a few places since then, bouncing around the county, but they've all been pretty nice. The little house in Flint Hill wasn't too bad either. That was a nice place.
Butch Sandel's, I lived there.
And then this place is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Cliff Miller.
Yeah. So then I talked with you 2 weeks about doing a podcast just about your journey, and that was a rather brief encounter you had with it, being that it was a benign tumor in your head. But boy, that was scary, I imagine.
Oh, when you can't move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real scary.
Yeah. So walk me through what happened 2 weeks ago, because this is like all new, you know.
Well, I was feeling great. No problems.
Yeah.
I came home probably a couple of weeks ago now, Sunday night.
Yeah, it was the day after I saw you.
Yeah, and went to bed, had a good night's sleep. Got out of bed, and I couldn't walk.
So it was the same type of thing.
Yeah, and of course that's where my thought process went. But my blood pressure then was 200 over 100.
Holy.
Which is stroke territory.
Yes, it is.
So I called 911, and they took me down to Culpeper. They brought my blood pressure down. I had a temperature of almost 103, 102.7.
Wow.
And stayed overnight, and the doc came in the next day. He said, "We're going to discharge you." I said, "Why?" He said, "You don't have a temperature." I said, "That's the criteria you go on?" I said, "Doc, I feel like a baggage man. I said, something way wrong with me. But they discharged me. I was out in the lobby waiting for a ride, and I stood up out of a wheelchair, and I just fell down. I couldn't even support myself. So I said to that guy sitting at the desk, I said, get somebody out here to readmit me, man. I said, I can't go home like this. After that, they did all the scans,
Yeah, they did
MRI,
the PET
CT.
scan, CT
One
scan.
would iodine, one would dye, and
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Been
And
through it.
that's when they told me I had cancer in my brain, adrenal gland, kidneys, liver, stomach.
So I thought you've been going to the UVA to get checked every
Yeah,
few months, and they haven't found
nothing
a thing.
ever appeared. I had no pain, didn't show up in my blood.
But did they do more than a manual check at the VA for you?
The VA?
Yeah, or anything, or wherever you went. I'm not sure.
No, this
UVA.
time I didn't go.
Yeah.
04, I went to Martinsburg.
Right.
And that was a fucking joke.
Yeah. Well, the VA really isn't set up for that, but I know UVA is because that's who I use.
So, no, this is the last visit I had down there. They found nothing.
Clear as a bell.
Yeah.
Well, I know that especially brain cancer spreads fast. Hope that you don't have so much pain.
Well, I got the meds for it.
Yeah, you definitely had the meds. Like,
Yeah.
When I got here, the hospice nurse was here. Well, she's not a hospice nurse. She is a hospice nurse. Yeah, that's right. And she was going through it all.
Christine. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been on those, so it's nothing new. Well, Ted, I'm not going to go on with much more because you're just giving me your life story pretty much. And I want to thank everybody who's watching this. If you have any questions, and go below. Thanks.